Bueno, hemos tenido muchísima suerte de que Sayan y Charlotte hayan podido venir porque, como sabéis, está siendo 3 días muy intensos. Ahora os va a contar Irene un poco más del trabajo de Sayan. No puedo hacer muchas bromas de fútbol porque sé que es muy futbolero. Él es el Jude Bellingham del periodismo fact-checking. Sigue siendo Jude Bellingham para algunos madridistas lo mejor, pero bueno, es una ocasión única para escucharle también. Lleva 3 días, si no le seguís en red debéis hacerlo, lleva 3 días prácticamente sin dormir desde que empezó el tema del atentado de Trump y como digo, es una maravilla que haya podido finalmente estar aquí en el Escorial, Irene.
Bueno, voy a hacer una breve presentación y ahora doy paso a Sayan. Sayan es reportero senior de la BBC, donde ha cubierto temas sobre desinformación, inteligencia artificial, teorías de la conspiración y extremismos. En este trabajo ha verificado decenas de desinformaciones, pero también ha compartido gran parte de su trabajo en Twitter, ahora X, donde ha hecho cadenas que todos seguimos explicando cómo es el proceso de verificación. Así que es un honor tenerte hoy Sayan, aquí. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. First of all, congratulations on winning the Euros. We were hoping that you would let us win one, but no, you have to win them all. So yeah, I hope all of you are a bit more cheerful today, unlike me and Charlotte. My name is Cheyenne. I've been a journalist with BBC News for about 12 years. And I started out doing sort of normal journalism. At that point, I worked in the BBC's Middle East desk and covered the Middle East. I'm originally myself from Iran, moved to the UK when I was very young. As a result, I have a sort of understanding of the Middle East. So that's where I sort of got my start. But then very soon, I got interested in, and particularly around 2014, when Charlotte's boss, Elia Higgins, started Bellingcat, and basically was the pioneer in the sort of open source investigations. I very quickly got interested in that. The BBC started putting together teams of journalists who were interested in sort of open source journalism, verification, and also the sort of misinformation side of the information space on the internet. And since then, I've been working in that area. And last year, the BBC launched a team called BBC Verify, which I'm a member of. It has about 60 investigative journalists in it. Not everybody works in open source journalism and misinformation. Some are sort of producers, some are correspondents, some do fact-checking, some do OSINT, some do all of it. And also we've got data analysts, and we do coverage of events both in the UK and globally. Obviously, the BBC is a global news organization, has viewers all around the world, so we have to cover both sides of it. I try to do mostly global stories. You know, there are people in the team who are 10 million times better than me when it comes to UK politics and the UK scene, so I focus more on global content. Now, my friend Charlotte walked you through some of the sort of aspects of misinformation and open source content, misleading open source content when it comes to conflict, wars. Hopefully you sat through it and you watched it. So I'm not gonna sort of duplicate what she did, but basically I was asked to focus on online misinformation when it comes to AI, and this thing that everyone is now sort of either very excited or very scared about it, and there's a lot of hype around it. Now, I'm old enough to have been around when there was a lot of hype around deepfakes 4 or 5 years ago, and it didn't turn out to be what everyone thought it would be. And it could be the same with AI, we don't know. I mean, I was told 2 or 3 years ago by now AI would have been amazing and we would have had images and videos that everyone would see and everyone would believe. That's not exactly the case at the moment, but maybe a few years down the line, we'll see. But basically, the sort of, when people ask me and other journalists in the team, how do you do what you do? What do you normally use? This is it, basically. Like, this is 80% of the job. And it's reverse image search. And I'm guessing most of you are familiar with it. Anyone not familiar with reverse image search? Hopefully you are. And even if you don't do it, I guess most people who are not journalists or researchers or people who are in this field don't necessarily have to do it every day like we do, like obsessively. but at least as long as you're familiar with it, that's great. You know, a lot of the stuff that you see online that is misleading, within 5 minutes you can check for yourself. Easy. You don't have to pay a penny to do it. And you can do it with these tools, with Google Lens, with TinEye, with Yandex, which used to be the sort of godfather of reverse image search. It's become a bit rubbish recently. But it's still, when it comes to the war in Ukraine in particular, and any events happening in Russia, it's still our #1 reference, because it's the sort of reverse image search tool for the Russian search engine Yandex. And Microsoft Bing, which has actually invested heavily in its sort of reverse image search tool, and it's become much, much better than it used to be. And this is how we do video verification. So video verification is basically the exact same as image verification. It's just when you have a video, you take screen grabs of it, and then you reverse search them online. Now, again, I'm old enough, going back 10 years ago, when we had to manually take screen grabs of videos, 20, 30, and then search each one of them. Now, there are tools like this, developed by good people in Germany, in Deutsche Welle, who I've met and I have a lot of respect for. This is called InVid, which is a free tool that you can basically add to your browser as a plugin. And you just feed it videos from platforms like Facebook, from X, from Instagram, and it sort of automatically takes screen grabs of the video and then allows you to reverse search them on several platforms, the ones that you saw before. So it sort of really makes the process quicker. Pretty much every open source investigator I know uses this tool sort of every day. And every fact checker, every person who works in this field, you talk to them about InVid, they all know it, they all use it all the time. Let's look at some sort of examples, and let's start with the sort of Russia-Ukraine war, which, you know, in the last few years we've had some of the biggest, you know, we've had several events which each time when the first one happened, I said, this is the worst I've seen in terms of online misinformation, and then something happened after that. So COVID was the beginning. Like when COVID happened, particularly the first year or so when we were all in lockdown, that was, I have an issue with this. When we were all in lockdown, that was definitely, like, to me, the volume of online misinformation was unlike anything I'd seen before. You know, a global event, once in a lifetime generation event, everybody locked inside their homes, and everybody terrified, scared, worried. So a lot of nonsense was spreading online. And then the war in Ukraine happened. And then, well, even before that, we had the US election in 2020, which was insane. And obviously, we all know the aftermath of it and what happened in the Capitol, in the US Capitol, 2 months after the election result, and then the war in Ukraine, and then the war in the Middle East. So it's been a real roller coaster for our field of work. And this year in particular, we're going to have another US election. We've had several major elections already. Let's get through some. So let's start.
Бути президентом виявилося не так вже легко. After the war, you're very welcome.
So this was that sort of Zelensky video. This was the first deepfake video of the Russia-Ukraine war. This one went viral in March 2022. And this was created by some Russian hackers who hacked a Ukrainian TV channel. And this message basically ran on the website and on the sort of on the television for like a few seconds before it was stopped. And as you can see, it's absolutely awful. Like it's horrible. What Zelensky is saying in this basically is asking the Ukrainian troops to basically put down their arms and stop fighting Russia. Obviously something he would never say, but they haven't even tried to make it look good. Like, it's awful, it's terrible. But it was notable because it was the first deep fake of the war in particular. Now let's look at this one. And this one is basically Zelensky. When the war happened, obviously the Russians in the first few months of the war were trying to take down Ukraine's infrastructure, particularly its telecoms infrastructure. And there were a lot of attacks in different parts of Ukraine on sort of telecoms infrastructure. As a result, some major parts of Ukraine lost access to the internet. And if you remember at that point, Elon Musk, who back then his brain hadn't completely been destroyed by his own platform because he hadn't bought it yet, he stepped in and he said, I'm going to make Starlink available to Ukraine for free. And he basically, there was like a chat that he had with Zelensky in his office when they talked about it. And Zelensky then posted a video, and when they agreed that Elon Musk would provide Starlink to Ukrainians for free. And Zelensky posted a video of that chat, and then something else also went online afterwards. Look at this.
After the war, you're very welcome. I invite you.
So the one on the left is the real one.
After the war, you're very welcome. I invite
Did you notice the one on the right?
De la cocaína, sí.
After the war, you're very welcome. I invite
So this is because the reason you saw that is because a lot of Russians well, it's been a consistent theme of sort of Russian disinformation throughout the war that Zelensky is a drug addict. And that video that you saw, we don't know for sure whether it was added with AI, but we think it's possible because it's actually really good. Like that one is one of the best examples I've seen because it's been done really well. And you know, if you hadn't seen the original video, it would be really difficult to tell that sort of illegal substance that you see on Zelensky's desk is not real. So that's definitely one of the best examples I've seen throughout the time I've been doing this work. Now this one, this is actually quite recent. Now this is a presenter on France 24, which is the well-known French news network. And he's announcing, this is from February this year, at that time President Macron was scheduled to go visit Ukraine, and suddenly he pulled out, there was something going on, you know, he pulled out. But then this video went viral online, particularly on Russian Telegram, and then from there usually what happens, it goes viral on Russian Telegram, and the people who really love Russia in the West start posting it on sort of major platforms, on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram. And this video, in it, the presenter is speaking about why President Macron pulled out of the visit to Ukraine. And what he says is that the reason is that the French government got hold of intelligence that suggested the Ukrainians wanted to assassinate President Macron.
Le président français Emmanuel Macron a été contraint d'annuler sa visite en Ukraine à la suite d'une provocation meurtrière à son encontre. Selon une source proche du Conseil national du renseignement, cette tentative a été stoppée par les services secrets français qui ont réussi à intercepter
Anyone speak French here?
les appels des participants à une provocation potentielle. Selon la source, selon l'idée des dirigeants ukrainiens, l'attaque aurait dû attirer à nouveau.
So the trick with this one is that video that you see the presenter speaking. If you go on YouTube and look for sort of videos of France 24 on YouTube, that video is real in the sense that that man presented, wearing that exact same attire, presented a news segment on France 24. What they've done here is that they've created AI-generated audio and used sort of deepfake techniques to make sure, they haven't done a brilliant job of it, that his lip sync matches with the audio. But basically his voice is AI-generated. And then they've used bits of video, like the one that you saw on Telegram was basically supposed to be like, you know, the messages that had been seen by French intelligence that Ukrainians were trying to assassinate President Macron. It's all made up, it's all nonsense. But you know, that is basically something that can be done. Not great in this example, because obviously even the narrative of it is a bit insane. Like the Ukrainians would never even think about assassinating Macron. Why would they? But there you go. Now, this is a really good one. And this is one that we spotted in March of this year. So if you remember, in March of this year, there was a terrible terrorist attack in Moscow in a concert hall. It was carried out by ISIS, and about 120, 130 innocent people, unfortunately, were killed. 4 ISIS members were responsible for it. And all 4 of them were later arrested, all 4 of them tortured as well, by the sort of Russian security forces. Now, what happened on the day that attack happened was, within hours of the attack, ISIS came out on the Telegram channel and they said, "We've done it." And they posted an image of the 4 gunmen who carried out the attack, and they said, "These are our people, we did the attack." Now, it's not unusual at all. There have been many, many radical Islamist attacks in Russia for decades and decades and decades. And ISIS has carried out attacks in Russia before. Other groups, particularly radical Islamist separatist groups, have also carried out terrorist attacks in Russia. Now, the Russian government, as soon as that happened, had an incentive to blame Ukraine for the attack, despite the fact that Ukraine had nothing to do with it. And then that evening, when that attack happened, this video ran on a Russian TV channel. And the man on the right is a top Ukrainian security official Alexei Danilov, and the two on the left are supposed to be Ukrainian TV presenters interviewing him. And what he says in this video is, basically, I don't speak Ukrainian, but I have a colleague who does. What he says in this video basically is, have you seen the scenes today in Moscow? That's great, isn't it? We would like to organize something else as well as soon as possible. So basically, he's sort of claiming that Ukraine is somehow responsible for the attack. Watch the video.
Чи весело сьогодні в Москві? На мою думку, дуже весело. Хочеться вірити, що такі веселощі ми будемо влаштовувати їм частіше. Все-таки братній народ, а родичів треба частіше радувати і частіше до них у гості ходити. Значить, будемо ходити.
So basically, he's telling those two presenters that Ukraine was somehow responsible for the attack and would like to do even more attacks like that. Now, when that was run on Russia's NTV channel and then posted online and in Russian Telegram channels and pro-Kremlin users on X and on TikTok and on Instagram, the first thing we asked ourselves was, first of all, ISIS has already claimed responsibility for this attack. Second, even if Ukraine wanted to do something like that, basically carry out a terrorist attack, pay somebody to do terrorist attacks in Russia because they're at war, why would they come on Ukrainian television and say it publicly? And third, if this is definitely true, why haven't we seen this on any Ukrainian networks, on any Ukrainian media? If this actually had happened, it would be big news. We would have seen it covered on Ukrainian media, but we hadn't. So we started looking for the source of this video, and we found, basically, we didn't find the exact person who created it, but we found the sort of first pro-Kremlin Telegram channel that posted it. And the way it works in Russia is basically something goes viral on Telegram, and Russian state TV just covers it like that. That's the way it works. So we went online and we started searching to see whether we could find the source of this video. And this is what we found. So as you can see, on the right, in sort of March 2024, so this would have been 2 or 3 days before the attack in Moscow, you can see that same man wearing the exact same outfit, Alexei Danilov, speaking to a Ukrainian YouTube channel about the war in Ukraine. You can see he's wearing the same black outfit, and you can see the same bookcase behind him. And then on the left, you can see the two presenters that you saw in the video wearing the exact same outfit and with the exact same background. And they're talking to Kirill Budanov, who is head of Ukrainian military intelligence. So and again, you can see that video was posted in March, on the 16th of March as well. So this was, again, 4 days before the attack. So what had happened here was somebody had gone and taken the video of Budanov talking to Ukrainian TV broadcasters and the video of Danilov talking to a Ukrainian YouTube channel, and then merged them together and then used AI-generated audio. We listened to this. This was like a 16-minute video of Danilov speaking to that Ukrainian YouTuber. And in the entire 16-minute video, he didn't say any of the words that you heard in the video that I just played. None of it. So it was crystal clear somebody had created AI-generated audio of him, and then you mix that video with the video of Budanov talking to Ukrainian television in order to make it appear as though Danilov was talking to Ukrainian television and saying, we've carried out the attack in Moscow. Now, that is a very complex process, and that is something that is difficult to catch. That is a good example of what can be done with this technology. And that's something that when we talk about AI-generated misinformation, that's the sort of thing that we need to look out for. Now, this is another example, and this is actually from the 31st of May. As you can see, the Russian embassy in South Africa has posted this video saying US State Department Speaker Matthew Miller justified Ukrainian strikes on Russian city of Belgorod because according to him, there are no civilians left in the city. Therefore, all of the targets are military. Disgusting disinformation, striking with cynicism. Is this how they attempt to legitimize murder of innocent people? And as you can see, the video is showing, obviously, the State Department has daily briefings. Journalists sit down and ask questions. And Matthew Miller is talking to a journalist. I'll play you the video. And see the exchange here that the Russian embassy in South Africa has highlighted. This is the video.
You've already stated the U.S. position on this issue, but you haven't addressed what you think about other countries, already 10 of them, allowing their weapons to strike targets deep within Russian territory. Will they have the capability to strike military targets?
We're all witnessing witnessing the situation unfolding. We need to draw a clear line between what is a civilian object and what is not. We're aware that Belgorod, a Russian city roughly 45 miles from Ukrainian Kharkiv, has essentially no civilians remaining. It's practically full of military targets at this point, and we are seeing the same thing starting in the regions around there. Russia needs to get the message that this is unacceptable. So we're going to back our allies in whatever they decide to do, and maybe help some of the folks who are on the fence about this make the right choice.
Now, I appreciate most of you probably haven't heard Matthew Miller speak, but that sounds like him. There are a couple of things that were wrong with that video. Did anyone spot them? Any idea? There were two things that stand out in that video that sort of make you go, hmm. Shall I play again?
Mm-hmm. You've already stated the U.S. position on this issue, but you haven't addressed what you think about other countries, already 10 of them, allowing their weapons to strike targets deep within Russian territory. Will they have the capability to strike military targets?
We're all witnessing the situation unfolding. We need to draw a clear line between what is a civilian object and what is not. We're aware that Belgorod, a Russian city roughly 45 miles from Ukrainian Kharkiv, has essentially no civilians remaining. It's practically full of military targets at this point.
Any ideas?
The voice is not adjusting with what they're saying in the mouth, and also all these blurring eyes.
Yeah, I think the blurring is because of the system. The real video is okay, but you're right. The lips are really, really weird, and not as good as the one that I played before. But the one that I played before with Daniel, the lips were not. They didn't stand out. This one, particularly with the reporter who was asking Miller a question, it really stands out. The lips are really, really weird. But there's something else as well that makes you go, what?
White marks?
No, that's actually, I think, the projector. Let me sort of... So when you play the video, he's wearing what is like a greenish-bluish tie. And then he asked that reporter to basically ask his question.
You haven't addressed what you think about other countries, already 10 of them, allowing their weapons to strike targets deep within Russian territory. Will they have the capability to strike military targets?
And now, suddenly, what happened? Did he change his tie in like 20 seconds?
We're aware that Belgorod, a Russian
So,
city roughly 45
so when I saw this, I thought this has to be two separate videos. Like somebody's taken two separate videos and sort of mixed them together and added AI-generated audio. And I went on YouTube, and thankfully with the US State Department, every time they have a briefing, they post the entire video on their YouTube channel, so you can go watch them. And I basically went through and watched lots and lots of recent State Department briefings done by Matthew Miller. Thankfully, there are several people doing it, so I could sort of scrap a few and just focus on the ones that Matthew Miller had done. And I found the one on the left from May 28th. Now, this tweet by the Russian embassy, remember, was May 31st. So I found the one on the left from May 28th, and then the one on the right from 9th of May. As you can see, the same reporter that you see in the video is there asking a question, wearing the exact same outfit. And you can see Matthew Miller is wearing the tie that we see in the second half of the video. And I watched both of these. They were 90 minutes long each. And basically, I wanted to see whether that particular exchange with the reporter and Matthew Miller, I knew that it would be impossible for them to, for the exact same video to happen in either of these because the ties don't match. Something's clearly wrong. But I wanted to see whether that reporter asks a question that is basically similar to what we heard in the video, and whether Matthew Miller says anything even remotely resembling what we saw in the video. And when you do that, and if Matthew Miller hasn't and the reporter hasn't, then you can come to the conclusion the audio is fake, right? So I watched both of them, and no, there was no mention of Belgorod, or that there are no civilians in Belgorod, and we're perfectly fine with Ukraine carrying out attacks against civilians in Belgorod. And the reporter didn't ask anything like that. That reporter asked a question about Ukraine, about the war in Ukraine, but not that question, something completely different. So again, you can see that somebody has actually spent some time and tried to make something which is sophisticated and not easy to catch. Like, this is not the type of video you would get with reverse image search, because reverse image search struggles with something like this because it's basically 2 or 3 different pieces of video mixed together. So this requires a little bit of legwork. It took me like 4 or 5 hours to actually catch this one. Now let's go Israel-Gaza war. There have been plenty of AI-generated images that I've seen from the war the horrible war that is currently going on in the Middle East. Most of them really bad. So you can see a few examples there. On the left, some people having some food amid the destruction in Gaza. You can see the arms are weird. The faces are weird. The background is completely jumbled up. The one second from the left is supposed to be Israeli civilians camping near a beach because of the attacks rocket attacks by Hamas and Hezbollah. Again, you can see the Israeli flags are completely weird. Some of the tents in the background are really bizarre. The one from the right is meant to be one of those sort of engagement farms, the ones they post for clicks. That some kid basically found this cat amid the destruction, AI generated, posted to TikTok, had 10 million views. The one on the right, again, that is supposed to be a father carrying his kids. And as you can see, there's a right leg sticking out. It's not clear who it belongs to. The toes are bizarre. The left leg of the kid who's basically being carried by her dad is looking weird. They're not great. And the thing about these images is there's no shortage of sort of real images of destruction and pain and suffering in Gaza. Like, why would you need to do this? A few more here. Again, the same story. A kid watching an explosion. You can see why something like that would go viral online. It's fake. Although I'm sure there are plenty of children who've seen explosions in Gaza in the last 7 or 8 months. On the left, you can see Israelis basically having a march in support of their troops. It's fake. Look at the arms. Look, the arms look bizarre. The one on the right, the kid, basically his mom has died and he's sort of praying to God. Fake. Although I'm pretty sure something like that has happened in Gaza. And the one you see on the sort of far right, some Israeli troops basically marching through the streets of Gaza. Fake again. Now let's do some AI Let's go through some sort of because with AI content we have AI-generated audio, AI-generated images, and AI-generated videos. The thing that everyone was concerned about this year was, this year has been dubbed the sort of election year. The elections happening something like half of the world population are going to the ballot box this year. We've already had major elections in countries like Pakistan, India. In the UK, we just had our general election, which was incredibly boring. Thankfully, you always want a boring election. You don't want, when elections get really exciting, something's about to go wrong. And then obviously we have the major election coming up in the United States later this year. Now, this audio is an AI-generated audio of President Biden. And as we know, like in America, elections last for like 1 year. And at the beginning of the year, they have their primaries, the Republicans and the Democrats. So in the beginning of the year, when it's a presidential election year, in the 50 states, Democrats, some Democrats stand for president, and then Democratic voters go in the 50 states and vote in primary voting to choose their candidate. And Republicans go in the 50 states and vote to choose their candidate. And then at the end of that battle, we have 2 candidates from both parties who will then become nominees of the parties for the election in November. Now, this audio was posted when there was a Democratic primary in the state of New Hampshire. And listen to it.
Mr. Milwaukee, we know the value of voting Democratic when our votes count. It's important that you save your vote for the November election. We'll need your help in electing Democrats up and down the ticket. Voting this Tuesday only enables the Republicans in their quest to elect Donald Trump again. Your vote makes a difference in November, not this Tuesday. If you would like to be removed from future calls, please press 2 now.
Now, it does sound like Joe Biden. It does sound like Joe Biden, but there's something clearly wrong with it. What is it? He's asking people not to vote. Like there's a primary in New Hampshire, and he's one of the candidates, and he's asking people not to vote. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, why would he ask Democratic voters not to vote for him when there's a primary? And this audio basically went viral on the day of the primary. And as you can see, great reporting by ABC News. They caught it really early. And it was obviously fake. Joe Biden had never said anything like it. And NBC News went and chased the person who had created it. And it turned out one of the candidates in the Democratic primary, like one of Biden's rivals, had paid someone to go and create this AI-generated audio. And the man himself, NBC News, talked to him. He told NBC, creating the fake audio took less than 20 minutes and cost only $1, the man who did it said, for which he was paid $150 by the sort of candidate who was a rival to Joe Biden. But it was a good clip in the sense that it definitely sounds like Biden, but the context of it is ridiculous. Now, this is Keir Starmer, a man you may never have heard of, but he's now a prime minister. He just won a general election. He's the leader of the Labour Party, and he won a landslide a couple of weeks ago in our general election, and is now the British prime minister. But, he has a low profile, so, if you've never heard of him, if you've never seen him, yeah, he's now basically the leader of our country. And this clip basically went viral during the election campaign. But this clip is not actually, it dates back to a few months ago. It just sort of was reshared. Word warning, there's a bit of swearing in it.
Well, not last year, when was it? Honestly, one of them was out inside shouting at me when I was at the tour. Why do we have to have confidence in every single
So, has anyone other than me and Charlotte heard Keir Starmer speak in the crowd? Yeah, okay, we can confirm that sounds like him. And basically he's saying that, he hates Liverpool. Now, again, first of all, I don't think I've ever heard Keir Starmer swear in public. I'm sure he does in private, but not in public. And also, Liverpool is one of the biggest Labour cities in the UK. It has a massive pro-Labour audience. It always votes Labour in all elections. There's no way Keir Starmer would say something like that about Liverpool. And this audio was basically generated in October of last year, when the Labour Party had a big conference in the city of Liverpool. And it was reshared again during the election campaign. It's not him. Again, it sounds good in the sense that it sounds like Starmer, and they've added some background noise as well to make it sound like he's speaking in a crowd, make it sound realistic. But obviously it's not him. Now this one, are we familiar with Imran Khan, former Pakistani Prime Minister? He's currently in jail because he's been accused of corruption by the sort of ruling party in Pakistan. Only a few years ago was the Pakistani Prime Minister. Still has a large following. And Pakistan had a massive election in February this year, a very controversial election actually. And this message went viral on sort of WhatsApp and on sort of messaging apps in Pakistan a day before polling day. And in it, basically, Imran Khan is asking his supporters to boycott the election. Now, it turned out that one was actually created by his rivals. And he came out very quickly and said, I haven't asked my supporters to boycott the election. They should go vote. But yeah, it was basically something that was done by his rivals to make sure that turnout from his supporters would be lower than what it would have been. Now, let's look at some sort of AI images recently that I've seen shared of sort of the two men who are, either of whom could be the most powerful man in the world for the next 4 years and deciding most of our lives. That's Joe Biden on the left. As summer of last year, Barbie obviously was a phenomenon, and that image was created, obviously ridiculous, unbelievable. But actually, it's good. I think that one's great. That one was generated with Midjourney, which is the best of the sort of AI generators when it comes to image. On the right, there was an incident in January of this year. One of the U.S. bases in Jordan was attacked, and about 13 U.S. troops were killed in the attack. This image went viral in the aftermath, which was supposed to show Biden basically chairing some sort of emergency session with his military top brass. Look at the U.S. flag on Biden's right arm. Looks completely wrong, and yeah, it's not real. Now, a few of the big man, who thankfully, survived the assassination attempt, which is good. But on the left, it's an image that was, there's an account on X that creates like these AI-generated images of Donald Trump in sort of unrealistic scenarios. In this case, apparently he sat down with some sort of young African Americans. Obviously, Secret Service would never allow that, although they haven't covered themselves in glory Secret Service, have they, with what happened 2 nights ago. But normally they would never allow a former president to just go sit in front of, with some kids in some neighborhood. There's a massive risk to that. It's not real. There's a ton of images of Trump and Epstein and also other sort of celebrities with Epstein. This one's supposedly in Epstein's Lolita Express. It's not real. And then on the right, in March, when everyone was obviously Trump was still going through some court cases. In one case, we remember that there was a mugshot of Donald Trump with one of the court cases. On the day that the mugshot was about to be released, this image came out. That was supposed to be. A lot of people believed that they thought it was the real mugshot of Donald. It isn't. It's AR generated. Now, have you seen this image? Okay, great. Because usually when there's stories involving the royal family, we just think it's only us, but it usually turns out a lot of people are interested in anything about the British royal family. So this image, for those who do not know the story of it, this image was posted, as you can see, by the official account of the Prince and Princess of Wales, Prince William and Kate Middleton, in March of this year. And at that point, there had been plenty of rumors. Kate Middleton hadn't been seen in public for months and months and months, and there were a lot of rumors about what's going on. And at that point, she hadn't come out publicly to announce that she'd been diagnosed with cancer. And she posted the image, and obviously there's a mood in the country and also in other parts of the world that, where's this woman? Why haven't we heard about it? And then suddenly she posts this image. And then there's a lot of things wrong with that image, which I'm sure all of you have seen and heard about, from like the jumpers to the Princess Charlotte's knee, to the window in the background that looks completely weird, particularly the frames, to Kate's hair. Like there are a lot of things, and also the tree in the background. A lot of things in the image that are like, what's going on here? So a lot of people convinced themselves that Buckingham Palace had basically created an AR-generated image of Kate Middleton and her children to basically deceive the public that everything was fine and not sort of tell the truth about where Kate was and what was going on. And this is the reason I've included this, and also a couple more examples, is this could be actually the real danger of AI, in the sense that sometimes we actually think events that are real and things that are real are fake. Now, in this case, what added to the confusion was AP, Reuters, and AFP, the 3 major agencies when it comes to images, all took down this image from the database. One after another, they said, on the night that this image was posted on Instagram by Kate Middleton. They all sort of sourced the image first in their database, so as journalists you could go use the image, and then they took them down, citing the reason for it as being that there are plenty of issues with the image, and the image looks like a manipulated image. And when they said that, when that happened, all 3 major, it blew up. This image, I think, was, it was everywhere on the internet, and people were like, this has to be AI generated. And then what happened was, the day after, Kate Middleton came out and said she took this image, that Prince William took this image, and Kate Middleton posted it on their Instagram account, but she did some editing, and she did some really bad editing. Which is the reason why the image looks really weird. Obviously, Kate Middleton not being an image editor. So she basically tried to sort of make it look a bit nicer, but didn't do a good job of it. And basically, the image was real. Like, it wasn't made up. And a few days later, she came out and said she'd been diagnosed with cancer. So all that hysteria around her basically went quiet. But yeah, this is an example of real things being mixed with AI. Here are a couple more. And on the left, both of these are actually quite recent. On the left, you can see an Israeli soldier. This image went viral, as you can see, in mid-June. And he's basically taking a photo with a fetus. And it does look a bit weird, doesn't it? And as you can see, one of the sort of big right-wing accounts on X, So a pro-Palestinian account has posted the image. An Israeli soldier posted a picture of himself with a fetus preserved in Gaza, and then an American right-wing influencer said, "It sucks that this is AI image." Terrible English. It sucks that this is I'll correct it for him. It sucks that this is an AI-generated image, because if it were actually real, it would be metal as da da da. But the thing is, it's actually real. That image is not AI generated. It does look a bit bizarre. The background looks a bit weird, and also the fact that he's posing with a fetus. But that soldier posted that exact same image to his own Instagram account. That's real. On the right, and this happened during our general election campaign. You can see this man. So that we have a party in the UK, a new party called Reform UK, which is like a right-wing party, right-wing populist party, and there were a lot of questions about some of their candidates, and you can see here a user has posted, "We might be on the verge of a huge scandal," and this is 2 days after the election. Suspicions have been raised that Reform have fielded election candidates that aren't real people. Is there any evidence that Mark Matlock, which was supposed to be that Reform candidate, a parliamentary candidate for the election, candidate for Clapham and Brixton Hill, actually exists? He looks AI generated. And to be fair, when I saw that, but particularly the one on the right, he does look AI generated. Like that image, that's not a real face. Like that, yeah. I've seen real people, they don't look like that. Yeah, so unfortunately, some news sources in our country who should have known better basically took that tweet and the sort of hysteria around it on the internet and ran pieces saying maybe Reform had run fake candidates. And this gentleman, Mark Matlock, is not a real person. They just fielded a fake AI-generated candidate just to be part of the election. Whereas the way it works with journalism is you actually check, and you could easily go to Reform and go to Mr. Matlock himself and check, are you real? And some other journalists who actually know the sort of basics of journalism did so, and it turned out Mark Matlock is real, he's a real candidate, and that image, he'd edited that image himself to look good, and had done a terrible job of it. So basically everything that we've just spoken about, and all these examples, and basically what's the point of all of this? The point is hopefully we can use these skills in our reporting, in our journalism, in our work. If you're an academic, if you're a researcher, if you're a journalist, you can use all of this to do some good reporting about some of the sort of more nefarious things that happen on the internet that we may not know about. And this is one example. I mean, I shouldn't say it's good reporting. It's a story that we ran 2 weeks ago and that I've been working on for months and months and months. And this is about a gentleman by the name of John Mark Dugan, who is an American, used to be a cop in Florida and a Marine, who had like a controversial, he had like a major argument with the Florida police force because he was posting like, he had it in his mind, this is going back to 2015, 2016, that he'd spotted like some sort of ring of child abusers, and he was posting images and addresses of Florida police officers, innocent police officers, and then he was prosecuted and he fled the US and went to Russia, and he's now become a Russian citizen and a huge supporter of Russia and sort of somebody who's against the West. He has a Telegram channel, he has a presence online. And we and some other news outlets, Bellingcat included, by the way, we've sort of been working together on this. We think he is behind a really, really sophisticated influence operation run from Russia, which basically creates fake news stories, fake websites, fake news websites that are supposed to be genuine, and fake news stories using AI, and basically tries to make stories about Ukrainian politicians, Ukrainian officials being corrupt, and also the aid that Western countries like the UK, Spain, France, Italy, the United States give to Ukraine is being used by Ukrainians to basically enrich themselves. That's the whole point of it. Now, the way it works, let's go through it, actually. Let's get through it with a very recent example of what this operation does, and hopefully it makes it a bit clearer to you. So 2 weeks ago, there was, if you were on the internet, on TikTok, on Instagram, on X, on Snapchat, you would probably have seen this claim that Olena Zelenska, who is the Ukrainian First Lady, wife of President Zelensky, during D-Day commemorations in June, in France when the Zelenskys were invited to take part in the commemorations in France. She went out to Paris and paid 4.5 million euros from the aid money given to Ukraine by the US to buy herself a very rare Bugatti sports car that was just supposed to be released. She was like the first person to buy that car. And she paid for it using US aid money. And this story was posted on this website that you see on the left. And the sort of, I've used Google Translate. It's actually in the original text is in French. And this was an obscure French website that no one had heard about. Verificación is what it's called, Hidden Truth. And it posted that story. And as soon as it posted that story, and when you see the story, they sort of have two pieces of evidence for this massive expose of Olena Zelenska. One is that receipt that you see in the tweet about the story, which is supposed to be a receipt from Bugatti confirming in the name of Olena Zelenska that she's bought she's paid 4.5 million euros for this very rare Bugatti car. And then there's a video in the piece that this obscure French website has run of a car dealer saying he was partly responsible for basically this transfer going through. And he says, I know for a fact that Zelenska used USAID money and paid 4.5 million euros while she was supposed to be in D-Day commemorations. She came to Paris and did it. So those are the two pieces of evidence that the piece on this obscure French website refers to, the receipt and the video. Let's look at the video that is supposed to be a car dealer, a French car dealer by the name of Jacques Berthy, telling you about what Olena Zelenska has done.
Salut à tous. Comme vous le savez, il y a quelques jours, Bugatti Automobile a présenté son nouveau modèle de voiture, le Bugatti Tourbillon. Maintenant, comme ce n'est plus un secret pour personne, je peux enfin partager avec vous cette bonne nouvelle. Je suis heureux de vous annoncer que la première propriétaire de la voiture Bugatti Tourbillon sera l'épouse du président ukrainien, Olena Zelenska. Avec les représentants de Bugatti Automobile, nous avons organisé une présentation privée de Bugatti Tourbillon à la délégation ukrainienne. Cela s'est passé le 7 juin quand ils sont venus en France. C'était 2 semaines avant l'annonce officielle du modèle Bugatti Tourbillon. Ils étaient les premiers à faire connaissance avec ce modèle. Et Mme Zelenska, elle a fait une précommande de Bugatti Tourbillon et sera la propriétaire de la première des 250 voitures. C'est un honneur pour tous les membres du groupe Schumacher de travailler avec une femme aussi exceptionnelle. Nous soutenons l'Ukraine de tout cœur et nous sommes ravis que Mme Zelenska fera partie de la famille et de l'histoire de Bugatti.
What is wrong with that video? Did you spot anything wrong with it? Do you think there was anything suspicious about it?
I mean, for me, everything is wrong with it.
Yeah.
His face doesn't match his hair.
His eyes. His eyes.
Yeah, everything is
what is going on with his eyes?
Who has a red seatbelt in their car, you know?
Yeah, what is going on with his eyes? Jesus Christ.
Salut à tous.
What is that? So as soon as we saw this video in the piece, and this video went viral, it spread like wildfire. And as you can see, there's supposed to be an Instagram account in his name, Jacques Berthy. And that was supposed to be a story posted on his Instagram. We went to his Instagram, and we saw his Instagram account had been created 4 days before he posted this video. And his Instagram account was basically 2 pictures of Bugatti cars and that video. And we were like, sorry, mate, there's something wrong here. And the reason we knew something was wrong here was because we'd been investigating this. I'll go through it for months and months and months. And this was the exact same thing that we've seen Dugin's network do, Dugin's operation do. But okay, let's first establish the sort of the evidence that is referred to in this piece and in this video and the receipt. So that video, we're pretty confident is AI generated. Pretty confident that's AI generated video. And that face, I think personally, has been taken from like a stock photo of just an ordinary man. And I suspect, I haven't been able to find it, I suspect there's a real video of a guy filming himself wearing that suit and tie in his car. and somebody's taken that video and replaced the head with the head of a sort of stock image of a man, and then used AI technology to make him sort of say what he's saying. That's what I think. But I've no doubt that's AI-generated video. Now, once we saw this story, we decided to look a bit further and see what else is happening with this website, what other stories they've posted. And this website, this hidden truth website in French that no one had ever heard of, had tons and tons of stories. And the website had been launched just a week before they posted their story about Zelenska, but it had tons and tons of stories. So we're like, how many staff writers have you got? How many journalists have you got? And why hasn't anyone heard about you? You've got all these people, they've got all these stories. So we started looking at these stories, and I don't know if you can see the text here, but these are 2 stories that I've picked out. There were tons and tons more. So on the right, you can see the AI prompt is basically saying, can you see it? Shall I read it for you? So it's saying, please rewrite this article with a conservative stance against the Macron administration's liberal policies in favor of working class French citizens. First month without commitment, right? And so that seems quite bizarre to be the opening line on an article about good news from the homeless sheltered by the Salvation Army. The one on the left, which is supposed to be a story about Russian military shoots down kamikaze drone with new NATO munitions. Serious story, right? The top line of the story is, here are some things to keep in mind for context. Republicans, Trump, DeSantis, and Russia are good, while Democrats, Biden, the war in Ukraine, big business, and pharma are bad. Feel free to add additional information to the topic as needed. What does that sound to you like? To me, that sounds like an AI prompt. To me, it sounds like somebody has put this prompt to an AI text generator like ChatGPT and has asked it to write a story about Salvation Army, about NATO, but with a tone that is against Macron or sort of pro-conservative or against sort of Ukraine. That's what it sounds like to me. And we went and used those prompts on ChatGPT, and it turned out if you ask ChatGPT to write something about those topics, you would get something similar. So we were quite confident that what's happening here with this website is the website was, in our view, launched specifically to make that fake story about Olena Zelenska go viral, but because they wanted to give it an air of authenticity, they had used ChatGPT and AI text generators to create all these rubbish stories to make it sound like it was a real news website. Like, there's nothing wrong with these stories. They look okay. The headlines look okay. But because they're so incompetent, that left some of the prompts, AI prompts, in the stories, and sort of it was quite clear what was going on here. But then it wasn't much of a. And then about the receipt, but I forgot about the receipt. This receipt. There are 10 million things wrong with that receipt. First of all, there's no currency on it. Second, there's no details of the transaction. Third, there's no address. Fourth, there's no taxation. And we showed that receipt to some sort of French experts, and they said there's no way that would be a genuine receipt. We contacted Bugatti, and Bugatti said this is completely made up. We haven't had any deals with Olena Zelenska. She hasn't bought any cars from us, and they issued a statement, and they said they were going to take legal action. The problem is we don't think the legal action will succeed because we know who's behind this. It's Jean-Marc Dugan, and he lives in Russia. So we've established this story is fake and it's completely made up, and the website that is supposed to be a genuine French news website is fake and has been created using AI, giving it some sort of make it look like a real news website just to make those anti-Ukraine stories go viral. Now look at these other websites that look pretty much the same. The Houston Post, the Boston Times, DC Weekly. Now we've spotted dozens and dozens and dozens of these websites. Most of them are sort of supposed to look like US news websites. There are some that are supposed to look like UK, British news websites. There are some that are supposed to look like French news websites, German news websites. There's dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of these. And they all look exactly the same. And they all have basically dozens and dozens of stories that have been created using AI that seem to be perfectly normal stories, although AI prompts, again, over and over again, you can see AI prompts left in the stories because Dugan is really incompetent. And then you see the sort of big expose, like the one on the right on that DC Weekly. Zelensky's luxury life and misused US aid stir global controversy while proxy yacht scandal. This was supposed to be Zelensky buying 2 really, really luxury yachts worth $20 and $30 million using US aid money. Completely made up story, completely fake, exactly the same as the one you saw before. And that was the sort of, the evidence for that story was a fake receipt again. And then you can see, again, when you look at these stories, again, you can see some of the evidence. Look at the video on the right, which was supposed to be a whistleblower from the FBI saying that the FBI, that on orders by President Biden, the FBI was wiretapping Donald Trump's residence in Mar-a-Lago. And then in the middle, you can see basically some whistleblower from Buckingham Palace saying President Zelensky had bought a £20 million mansion from King Charles III. And then on the left, you have a story on DC Weekly. Olena Zelenska has bought some, Cartier jewelry in New York. The thing about those 2 videos on the right, both of those videos were created by YouTube channels that had been created just a couple of days before those videos were posted. They were completely obscure. They didn't have any other videos. And the other thing is those 2 men we think are the same. We think that is the face of the same men. In one video, he has got beard. In other one, he hasn't. The haircut is a bit different, but we think they're the same men. And again, both of these videos, when you play them, when you run them, they're AI generated. Like it's a real man, but the voice, the sound is AI generated. Now, all of these stories are fake again. But this is basically the modus operandi of this man and this operation. You create fake videos, AI-generated videos of some whistleblower of a really, really controversial story. Then you create some fake receipt, some fake document, and then you run the story on your fake websites, which are supposed to be real news websites, and then they blow up online. Somebody posts them online with massive influence. Not all of these stories go viral, but when they do, they go really viral because they're supposed to be really controversial. The other thing about these websites, and this is just one example, some of them are supposed to have some real journalists. In this case, on the right, you can see Miss Jessica Devlin. Jessica Devlin is a distinguished and highly acclaimed journalist whose career has taken her to some of the most critical and challenging regions of the world. And she's written some of these fake stories. The thing is, when you run a simple reverse image search, you realize that Miss Jessica Devlin is actually an author in the name of Judy Battalion who lives in New York. We contacted Judy, and she said, yeah, that's my picture. I have nothing to do with this bizarre website, DC Weekly. Why have they used my picture? I'm going to file a legal complaint. And we told her, yeah, do it, but it's not going to go anywhere. But basically, Jessica Devlin doesn't exist. Jessica Devlin is a fake persona. There's no highly acclaimed journalist writing for these websites called Jessica Devlin. It's just a picture of some innocent author in New York City. Now, why does this story matter? Why did we cover it? Why do we think it's important, beside the fact that it goes viral and some people believe it? Like that story about Zelensky buying a Bugatti. I'm pretty sure loads and loads of people believed it because it went really viral. Particularly, it's when sort of influencers on the internet, particularly on the sort of populist right and the populist left, who have a stance against, some of them really love Russia for some reason, some of them see themselves as anti-imperialists, some of them, I'm not going to go into you've seen them, you know who I'm talking about, what type of people I'm talking about. They tend to believe these stories immediately. And the ones who have a large following, when they post it, millions and millions of people see these stories that are completely fake. But the reason we're covering it is that with some of these stories, in the case of the Zelensky yacht story, which we said was fake, you can see on the right, J.D. Vance, who is a very influential Republican senator, a very close ally of Donald Trump, very close friend of Donald Trump. He mentioned this story in a sort of interview that he was doing. He mentioned the story. So he clearly had seen it on the internet. He believed it, that Zelensky had used USAID money to buy yachts. On the left, you see Marjorie Taylor Greene, the controversial congresswoman. I don't know if you know about her much, but yeah, she's an interesting case. She posted the same story on her Twitter account again about the Zelensky yachts. And these are two people with power and influence who'd seen the story and who believed it. And that's the reason we think it was important to cover this operation, because it was clearly having an impact at the highest echelons of the US government. That's pretty much it. Thank you for your time. If you're interested in our in our work, you can go to the BBC News website, check the BBC Verify index. All of our stories are there, including our good friend John Mark Dougan. My BBC email is there. My Twitter account is there. My DMs are open. My emails are open. Anytime you want to send me an email, a message, always happy to respond. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Sayan. So, si tenéis alguna pregunta, podemos hacer ahora turno de preguntas.
Hola, hola. So many thanks for your speech. I was wondering if there's any breakthroughs on catching the source of the fake news, like you did with this guy, because I think it's so it's like impossible to fight all the misinformation out there. And fact checking is great, but it's like small projects for what they're trying to fight against. So if you can catch the source, you can catch the people behind it, and that's not that many. So is there anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Dougan story is one case that it took us a long time, but we eventually, with sort of what we did with the Dougan story, we went and checked the IP sources of those websites that he was running. And we quickly noticed that all of them linked to the same email. And we basically traced the email, and it turned out it was Dougan. And we contacted him. He never confirmed that he was behind it, but he didn't deny it either. In a sense, when we were talking to him, he was like, yeah, I did it. In that sense, again, Dougan wasn't sort of going through specific lengths to hide his trace of running these websites. You know, with some work, you would figure out he was behind it. But there are some cases where it gets really complex and really difficult, particularly when it's sort of state-sponsored misinformation and influence operations run by states, including Russia, China, Iran, America, France, Spain. Everyone's at it. All states pretty much do it. Then it gets quite difficult. It also comes down to, particularly the ones that are run on major platforms like, say, Facebook or Instagram, on TikTok. We don't have all the data. Like we might have a sort of guess that this looks like something we're investigating. This looks like it could be an influence operation and sort of major disinformation operation, but we don't have all the data. We can only guess. In those cases, we need help from the platforms, and in most cases, the platforms are not helpful because they don't want bad headlines. One example I can give you was last year with, we thought that we'd spotted an influence operation on TikTok that was basically a series of, we spotted like about 1,000 accounts in Russian, Ukrainian, French, English, German, Italian, who were posting videos about, again, similar. They were saying that Ukrainian officials are corrupt and taxpayers in the West should basically be really unhappy about their money being sent to Ukraine. And there were videos that were created with AI. There were like narrated videos, and we found like 1,000 accounts. They had one video each. All of them just posted one video. And we thought we could link those accounts together, but we weren't sure. We guessed that was like a Russian influence operation. So we went to TikTok. In that case, TikTok were really helpful. And they sort of did their own investigation, and they came back to us and said, yeah, we think this is an operation stemming from Russia, and you guys gave us 1,000 accounts. We found 13,000 accounts that are part of this operation. So we need their help. They're not usually helpful. And in some cases, it's really difficult to trace them. And in some cases, actually, it's impossible, particularly when these are cross-posted, when they go from like Telegram to X, then to TikTok. Like, tracing some of this stuff is really difficult. So I can't give you an answer that, yeah, it can always be done. It's really important that you try to do it, because it gives your story, your investigation, more authenticity, and you have more evidence to rely on. But sometimes it really is impossible.
Hello. Thank you very much for this interesting talk. I would like to say that there are many cases where the identity of the news websites are supplanted in that way, and we have seen that there are many errors, and as the images are not really realistic or the AI prompts are there. But in many cases, there are lots of hacks to the news websites where they have put their website over their website, and you can find these websites easily in Google because it's well positioned in that way. So there are many tricks to know what it is and what is wrong. But could you recommend any trick to identify to any person who don't know how to see who is generated with AI or not, how to see why these websites are wrong? Because many of them, they are really similar to BBC News or anyways.
Yeah, the thing is, that's really, the real answer is there is no specific way to do it. And the reason for that is, first of all, there are plenty of legitimate news websites run with AI. I know plenty of, journalism is an industry that is always short of money. And I know in person plenty of good journalists, good editors who are running perfectly good innocent news websites, and they're using AI. They're getting help from AI to run their websites because they can't pay like 20 people, 30 people. So they can pay 5 people, 7 people. Other stories have to be done with AI. Like, what else can they do? So you want to be careful about that. Second, one of the things that people usually recommend is, using some of these. Have you seen these sort of AI or not type sort of free tools on the internet? You feed them this piece of text and they tell you it's been generated with AI. Yeah, don't use them. They're really bad. They're really rubbish. And I'm sort of the last year or so been screaming in the void for people not to use them, because I've used them, I've tested them, other people have. They're not good. They're not reliable. And then people go use these, and then there's a perfectly legitimate news website, and then somebody runs something on one of these AI text generator checkers, and it says it's AI, and they go, oh, that's AI. Or the same with sort of AI images and videos. Like they're really not good. I don't know if you remember, there was like a case of when the sort of terror attack on the 7th of October happened in Israel. There was like a baby that was sort of unfortunately burned in a car, and that image went viral. And these AI checkers said that the image was fake, it was real. So yeah, it's really tricky in that sense. And I'm not a coder. Like when it comes to the really sort of more sophisticated parts of checking this stuff, I'm not a coder. But we do have coders in the team who help us. I would say the most important thing is don't rely on these sort of easy sort of answers that are like, yeah, you just feed us this piece of text, we'll tell you whether it's real or not. And also be aware that there are perfectly legitimate operations using AI. Yeah. When it comes to the fake ones, I think just trust your judgment and rely on evidence. Like the one we did with those websites, we actually, because we wanted to check those stories, the ones that the AI prompts were left in. Obviously, that's a great clue that AI prompts were left in them, but we still wanted to double check. So we used ChatGPT ourselves. We tried to write a story about, say, a NATO fighter jet that's been delivered to Ukraine with the sort of similar vibes of what that story was about. And we used ChatGPT several times to see how it would generate a story. And it generated something really similar. And we did this over and over again for several stories on the website. And once we did it over and over again and always got the same result, we were like, yeah, this looks like. So yeah, usually I would say there's no clear way of doing it, but you have to put in the time, you have to put in the hours to sort of do checks, sort of very, very sort of detailed checks, and it takes time, but trust your own judgment better than what these online tools say.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that it's real. There are lots of ways of hacking or ways of doing well or doing wrong in that way, and there are lots of tabloids, for example, that they publish images that they don't know that they are generated in that way, only for clickbait or anything, because it's an easy way.
When it comes to hacking, I mean, speaking on the record, we can't do that. Because legally, we as news journalists, we're not allowed to do that. Maybe somebody privately would like to do it. I don't know, but we don't recommend it. We're not allowed to do it. We have to rely on open source journalism is open source, publicly available. So that's another side of it, and I know there are plenty of people who are, are more capable than me of doing that sort of stuff, but we're not allowed to do it legally. But there are tricks that you can do. People scrape websites, scrape, platforms like, there are plenty of platforms that there's no data available, like TikTok, but sometimes you have to do some scraping. And I can't do it because I'm not a coder, but we have people who are able to do it, and some people can do it. But yeah, be careful with sort of hacking and stuff. Be careful you're not sort of doing something illegal. just.
Another question?
So thank you so much for your speech and also to be here in Madrid. So I want to ask you a question. Have you noticed any difference between the way you fact check in a public institution, if you compare with other fact checker agencies, which are not by public incomes?
In what aspect do you mean?
The way you do your job, like if you find any limitations.
What I would say is, thankfully, I'm lucky enough to know plenty of fact checkers, fact-checking institutions that work in different parts of the world. I've gone to their to their conferences. I've met their editors, their staff in different places. First of all, I would say the scale is different because when you're part of a news organization as big as the BBC with the sort of budget it has, obviously you have sort of more opportunities to do sort of more work, whereas many of these fact checkers, you go, perfectly good people who are working, their socks off, but there's like 10 people in the office and they have to deal with such a volume of content, and it's impossible. It's impossible for us in the BBC, like with sort of 60 journalists in a big team. It's still impossible. So in that sense, I would say the scale of it is different. Because I work for a major news organization, we have usually a sort of a high bar for covering this sort of stuff. It has to be really, really viral. If it's something that is not being seen by tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people, BBC editors, and it's the same in most major news, they always say no. Because then you have to consider, are you using your platform, a major platform like the BBC, to make something that was seen by 5,000 people on TikTok? Are you making it actually bigger than it was by covering it? But sometimes the sort of more local, smaller fact-checking institutions, they try to fact check that stuff as well. We don't. But I would say I personally always would like to focus on stuff that's viral. I think when you do something that is not viral, there's obviously the risk of amplification and making it bigger than it really is. But also, it may be like if you do something, if you make it like a big deal, people come back to you and say, "But no one had seen that." So it's always best to, in my opinion, to focus on stuff that has an audience, that is being seen and is being believed. And for that, you can always rely on the metrics of the platforms. And I know those metrics are awful, and they sort of really exaggerate them. Like on X, video views on X, you sort of 2 seconds, you sort of scroll down on your feed on X, and a video starts playing for 2 seconds. That counts as a view. I know that, but that's all we've got. Like, those are the metrics we've got. We haven't got access to what these platforms do and how they measure their content. That's what we've got. At least when somebody comes back to you and says, "Why did you cover that?" you can say it has 500,000 views on X.
Aquí en España y en el resto de la comunidad fact-checker el criterio es el mismo. Creo que es una cosa que hemos aprendido todos, y es que la viralización debe ser la primera decisión que tomas a la hora de fact-checkear algo. O sea, que es la BBC, evidentemente, pero no puedes, como tienes pocos recursos, no puedes dedicarlo a gente que no tiene mucha exposición, aunque luego puede ocurrir que la tenga, ¿no? Pero es verdad que el primer criterio es cómo de viralizado está, y entonces ya lo abordas con las métricas de las plataformas que, como dice Sayan, están en cuestión, pero son las únicas.
One more thing, are you a fact checker yourself? Are you a fact checker yourself? No. One more thing I'll say, and I've heard this from fact checkers who work in sort of smaller fact-checking organizations and institutions. They say, well, what's the point? Because something goes viral and gets like 10 million views on TikTok, and we do a fact check and like 2,000 people see it. But, my answer to that always is, if your plan as a fact checker or somebody who's a journalist or a researcher who works in this field is to basically counter and go into a contest with these sort of massive influencers that post this type of stuff and get huge views, you're always going to lose. That should not be your objective, because first of all, it's not only them you're fighting against, it's the algorithms as well, and the platforms are designed to make content that is controversial, kooky, insane, go viral. That's the way the algorithms work. And facts are boring, are dull, boring. People are not interested in them because, yeah, okay. Whereas when you say, yeah, Zelensky paid £20 million of USAID money to buy 2 yachts. Wow. So you can never compete with that. And you should never be discouraged by the sort of discrepancy in the number of views that you get. Your aim should always be, and this is the way I set out to do my work every day, if you manage to, if somebody had seen that story about Lena Zelenska buying a Bugatti and then read our report, if one person had believed that, had seen one of those stories on those viral tweets and TikTok videos about this story and saw a report and we managed to change their mind, for me that's job done. If one person. If you've managed to change one mind, you've done your job.
Thank you very much, Sayan. I would like to know if when you are working in an investigation, at some point you used to share information with other researchers. I am asking that for 2 reasons. One is I have seen this investigation uncovered by other organizations.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Charlotte is here. We actually talked about this same operation. We shared information about this operation. Yeah, obviously, there's a sort of a bit of a bizarre tension between sort of journalists and academics, institutions, think tanks, companies that sort of do research in OSINT and misinformation, that sort of, because journalists are really competitive. And they always want to have an exclusive, and then this has to be mine, and nobody else should get involved, and I should get all the credit for it. That's the way journalism works, sorry. But with sort of people who do research, universities, they usually have a more sort of collaborative spirit, and they want to sort of work together and share stuff together. Yeah, I mean, this story, obviously, if you go read the story, we mentioned several institutions, including Bellingcat, that work with us. That I personally don't have a problem with that. Again, it's sort of, as I say, journalism is very bizarre in that sense. But I think I know pretty much everyone who works in this field that has sort of does it as a sort of part of university, or sort of like Bellingcat, they sort of do it themselves as an organization, or people who are just sort of researchers who do it in their own time, freelance researchers who have full-time jobs and then, get home from work in the evening, they start posting OSINT stuff on TikTok or on, and I keep in touch with them all the time because most of them are 10 million times better than me, and I wouldn't be able to do this job without their work and their expertise.
Thank you. If I may, the last one. Speaking of elections, I would like to know your take on the real impact or influence of AI-generated content on elections. Do you think it's getting to the point it's already changing or influencing the voting, or it's just like escalating the degree of polarization?
So this year, at the beginning of the year, because it was dubbed the sort of big election year, there was a lot of hype around, what AI content would do in this year, and how much impact it would have in major elections. Up to this point, we're halfway through the year, more than halfway through the year. I would say the evidence does not suggest that. I mean, I obviously showed you some examples: Joe Biden, Keir Starmer, Imran Khan. There were like a few more in the Indian general election. There were some AI-generated videos and images. Not very good, but there were. I would say the evidence at the moment doesn't suggest that this is something that is changing voters' minds and is happening on my main task, my main work on a day-to-day basis still is on images and videos that have been produced and created by somebody who's done it in 2 minutes on their mobile phone. And it's just a really badly edited image of Biden and Zelensky kissing each other, and somebody going, "There you go, Zelensky's gay," as in, and then you go and get 20 million views on X. That's still most of the sort of work that I see and do is still really, really sort of basic stuff that is done by somebody on their smartphone within 2 minutes, and it goes viral. And it's just video that's taken out of context, poorly edited. You know, you take 2 seconds of a video and then completely change the context of the video. Or, yeah, that's still most of the work I have to see and do. Like, for example, when the assassination attempt on Trump happened, if you go and see most of the fact checks that I've done, they're not AI. Pretty much all of them, the ones that went really super viral, are not AI. So I would say this idea that AI is sort of completely changing things, the evidence does not bear that out. But where we're going to be 2 or 3 years, 5 years from now, I don't know.
Bueno, pues si no hay más preguntas, dejamos aquí la sesión y nos vemos a las 4. Muchas gracias, Sayan.